Life sometimes ties our stories into knots we cannot understand, and the threads we believe were lost forever suddenly pull together at the exact moment fate decides the time has come. Some people spend their whole life searching for what they lost. Some carry regret for something they were once forced to leave behind. But a truth kept inside a heart never disappears. It simply waits quietly until the day it is allowed to return. This is a story about forgiveness, about a wound carried for decades, and about the kind of hope that only a mother's heart can keep alive. Ethan was one of those rare doctors who healed not only with medicine, but with the warmth in his voice and the kindness in his eyes. Patients felt safe with him. People said, he doesn't just treat the body, he heals the person. He spoke softly, respectfully, and with a genuine care that could calm even the most anxious soul. He never talked much about himself. And sometimes, when he stood by the window staring into the distance, there was a gentle, unspoken sadness in his eyes, as if he was waiting for someone he couldn't remember. One day an elderly woman named Grace was admitted to his department. Her illness wasn't serious, but her heart was tender, and she had the kind of eyes that carried entire stories inside them. Ethan took care of her with his usual calm attentiveness. Grace watched him with growing affection, as if each day she recognized something familiar in him. One afternoon she said to him, "Son, you have such a gentle heart. Whoever brought you into this world and raised you, they deserve a blessing. They raised a good man." Ethan smiled politely, but something in those words touched that quiet sadness inside him. That evening, when he came home, he kept thinking about what Grace had said. Finally, he found himself opening an old suitcase where he kept everything the orphanage had once given him. Inside was a small locket, the only thing that had come with him when he was adopted. He opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph of a young woman and a man in military uniform, her husband, perhaps, or someone she loved deeply. Ethan didn't know them, but for some strange reason, their faces carried a warmth that stirred something in him. He stared at the photo for a long time. Then he slipped the locket into his pocket and took it with him to work the next morning. When he entered his office, he placed the locket gently on his desk. Just then a nurse rushed in asking for help. Ethan left in a hurry. The office stayed quiet. Sunlight fell across the desk, lighting up the faces inside the locket. A few minutes later, Grace walked in to thank the doctor for everything he had done for her. She stepped forward, and her breath caught in her chest. Her eyes widened. Her hands began to tremble. On the desk was the locket she had lost more than 30 years ago. The locket she placed inside her baby's blanket the night she left him at the orphanage door. A picture of her younger self and her husband Andrew, the kindest man she had ever known, the soldier who never returned from the war. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed to the floor. Ethan and the nurses rushed in and brought her back to consciousness. When Grace opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was the locket. Then Ethan's face. She reached for the locket with shaking hands and held it to her heart, tears flooding her eyes. This is my locket," she whispered. "I recognize it." Ethan stared at her, confused. "This locket was given to me at the orphanage," he said quietly. Grace looked at him with a pain she had carried for a lifetime. "My son," she whispered. The room fell silent. Tears ran down her cheeks as she spoke, her voice breaking with every word. "I gave birth to you and I held you for 7 months. I fed you, protected you, loved you with everything I had. Your father, Andrew, he was the gentlest man I ever met. Your eyes, your kindness, your way of speaking, all of it you took from him. When the letter came saying he had died in the war, my world collapsed. I had no home, no help, no future. I was alone, and I was terrified. I was afraid I couldn't keep you safe. I was afraid you would grow up hungry, cold and suffering because of me. I was weak, son, I was scared, and that night I left you at the orphanage door, but I never left you in my heart." She pressed the locket to her chest. "This was my last hope that fate would return you to me someday." At that moment the door opened, and her 4 grown children, Emily, Sarah, Mark, and Joseph, entered. "Mom, what's going on?" Grace wiped her tears and looked at them with trembling eyes. "My children, I've hidden one truth from you all these years." She pointed to Ethan. This doctor is my first child. The son I lost, the son my heart never stopped searching for. Her children froze, tears forming instantly. I never forgot him, Grace said. Not one day in my life. In the hallway, nurses and doctors who had witnessed everything quietly wiped their own tears. One of Ethan's longtime colleagues said softly, "I always noticed that quiet sadness in your eyes. I always felt you carried something heavy. Now I understand. Your heart was searching." Ethan swallowed, his voice trembling. Yes, it was my silence, my unanswered question, and today the answer found me. He stepped closer, knelt beside Grace, and took her hands. "Mother, I found you," he whispered, "and I accept you with all my heart." Grace sobbed and pulled him close. "My son, I found you again." Her children embraced Ethan, and in that moment every broken thread of fate quietly wove itself back together. Sometimes life leads us down the hardest road, but forgiveness born in the heart can heal even the deepest wound. Hope never dies, and every reunion begins with a single moment of courage. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel. More emotional, heartfelt stories are on the way.